Smith.
You know, you guys were cracking me up during the break as Tom Murphy with us, Whole Hog Sports Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and you bring up the peaches and cream.
Yeah.
Tom here has a zero sugar Dr. Pepper strawberries and cream base. What are we giving that, Tom, out of 10?
My first sip was pretty solid, man.
Okay.
But I would be happy to join you guys at that Uncorked one night. That sounds
It's a good
like
spot.
a fun
It is a great
deal.
spot. It is a wonderful
Scott and them
spot.
do a really good job.
Yeah.
Also, one more off the wall question before we get into football. You know, it's funny. You're talking about the Uber driver to and from the All-Star game. Last night, he hadn't had the varsity yet, so we went to the varsity famous.
Yes. Well, we were going to stop there the other night coming back. They had just closed, and
You were serious about going to the varsity.
I've never been. I ate one hot dog at the game. We hadn't eaten before. It was about 9:45 when we finally 10 o'clock when we got in the Uber. I was hungry. You were hungry. We both came back and had a way overpriced ham sandwich at the.
But it was actually tasty. It was a boar's head.
Yeah.
Mine was good.
It was good, but I don't know if it was $28 worth. But anyway,
he was cracking me up last night. We go there. We both get a chili cheeseburger and a chili dog. I got fries. He got onion rings. But what's funny is he was telling me the story of the Uber. It's like, I like this guy. He drives. He's aggressive. He's this. And apparently that was y'all's Uber to the game, but back it was like slow as molasses.
Normally Uber drivers aren't that slow anywhere I've been, but she was very cautious. But, hey, safe, so that's good.
Safe's the good thing.
We'll get to Sam Pittman in a minute. They're probably in the building already, or if not, they'll be here.
I heard they've landed.
In any moment. But we heard from Eli Drinkwitz, Missouri head coach, earlier this morning. He led off the day. We got Mark Stoops talking now downstairs. But what were your takeaways from Drinkwitz, who showed a little bit of personality this morning?
Big time. He was feeling his oats. He was basically commenting during reporters' questions with Pat Forty, who introduced himself. He goes, Mizzou grad, which is true. And I asked him, because his opening comments were that coaches are up here. You're tired of coaches whining.
I heard your question. Yeah.
So I'm like, well, you mentioned coaches whining. Are you talking about portal stuff, the cap? But he's like, nah, none of that. He didn't really touch the question.
He paused. I think the question caught him off guard. I was listening, and I'm like, ooh, because he kind of pauses. And I couldn't – I was up here, but I was listening on the headset.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell whether – because I couldn't read the body language, whether it irritated him or whether it caught him off guard.
It's a thoughtful question from Tom.
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure what his response was.
I think he just decided not to dive into portal and – whatever.
He gave you a vague answer.
Very vague, but think about it. If you dive into it, how deep do you go? Because guys who think tampering's going on and people are overspending and all, they're going to say a lot of stuff. So I think he just decided to. But he did elaborate more on Pat Forty's question about 8 or 9 teams in the playoff, and said Commissioner Sankey, who's sitting right over here, would not like him for saying that. So he's like, what's best for the players and what have you. But I actually didn't listen to everything he said about it, but apparently he didn't think Greg Sankey would like it.
I don't know if you caught Brett McMurphy's report that the Big Ten is just being like, hey, we're not going to move forward with the college football playoff, what the SEC wants, until they go to a 9-game schedule. Oh. And he says, and we had Commissioner Sankey on this morning, and he said that he still has owned Tony Petitti a call back, the Big Ten commissioner. And I just asked him, what's the relationship like between you and the Big Ten? And he mentioned, well, there's something, he paraphrasing, there's some things we see the same on, there's others we don't. What do you think that is like behind the scenes, considering the Big Ten has won the last 2 national championships?
Well, so they've got some leverage, but the SEC's got plenty of leverage as well. Yep. And unless the money comes from ESPN, which is basically telling them we're not sure if we can up our deal with you guys to add the 9th game, I don't think the SEC is going to move.
Well, and interesting, because who was set up here a day or two ago and promoting their new direct-to-consumer platform, ESPN.
Yes, they were.
They're changing their business model, and I've got to believe it's part of their way to generate more revenue by cutting out the middleman, which would be your Hulu, your YouTube TV, your Cox Cable, your DirecTV or Dish. Direct-to-consumer from ESPN to get their packages is the movement they're headed towards, and I'm sure part of that's to figure out how to raise more cash when the antes are upped.
I bet it is, because it sounds to me like they're a little bit of loggerheads. The SEC's like, we're this powerful entity, and we're not going to go to 9 games just to please you and have an agreement on what the playoff's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, because financially, or at least the last time we heard what the finances would be, adding that 9th game would only add about $3 to $4 million per school.
But it would cost you a home game every other year.
Yes.
And those home games generate, even if it's Alabama A&M, they're generating $5 million.
I just don't. I think there's more cons than pros for moving to a non-game, to be honest. And I'm also looking at from the Arkansas vantage point. And I know what coaches may say publicly, but privately. And you correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think Sam Pittman's on the record of saying he would rather, and I'm paraphrasing, he'd rather stay at 8, right?
Basically, but he's kind of like whatever the flow is. If it's 9, they'll live with it. But I do believe them, and a lot of other schools would prefer 8. And the gist I'm getting here, even from Greg Sankey, is that they're perfectly willing to stay at 8 because it has suited them getting teams in the playoff and what have you.
Well, what's the plus of 9? I mean, because like you said, financially it's not maybe over a 2-year period it lifts you $2 million as a school. That's not enough to motivate you because as a coach, all you're doing, if you support 9, unless you're Kirby Smart or unless you're the old, Nick Saban, unless you're the most secure guy in the world, maybe Steve Sarkisian a little bit now, you're just signing up to get fired. And you look at Arkansas's 30-year record in the SEC, we all know it's not good. Why would you sign up for more of that?
Exactly, and that's why I asked Greg Sankey, was there momentum to either way, 8 or 9? He didn't really answer the question, but he said our schools already, some of them like Florida and South Carolina might have 10 Power 5 games or Power 4 every year anyway.
Yeah, Florida plays Florida State.
And they're basically mandated to play a Power 4 non-conference, so that's 9 automatic. And some of them play 10. So he was basically defending preemptively against the Big Ten in we don't feel like we need to move to 9. So
all right, so later this afternoon, Sam Pittman's going to talk to the media in the main room. I think that's 1 o'clock, if I remember right. And the players, we're going to meet with players and Coach Pittman downstairs. What do you think his message will be today? When we listen to Sam Pittman just after lunch, what will he be trying to express about his program?
We talk about this very thing on the air quite a bit right here, and that's how do you generate excitement about feeling good about the prospects for Arkansas football this year. They're going to be picked very near the bottom, and with all the player turnover, can you stay cohesive? Do you have enough depth and all that kind of stuff? So things like that. Arkansas was second in the conference in total offense last year. You can win games doing that, but they have to be better defensively. So questions about defensive depth and I'm interested to hear a little bit further take on transfer portal and just updated things like that.
You mentioned defensive depth. Tommy, you know this roster better than Tommy and I do. Cam Ball, Xavier, I think everyone knows those two guys. They're obviously here. They're going to get some pub this week. Who is the main, outside of Cam, who's the guy on the defensive line you think is going to have the biggest year for Arkansas? And on the back end, that's the biggest question mark at the defense. Who would you point to there?
Yeah, it really is. Both of those. And I don't know. I think they're going to have to be super creative, and their linebackers are going to have to be sent, or DBs, in the pass rush to.
Like Sanders a couple years ago.
Exactly, to keep quarterbacks on the move or have them look for the rush. And I just don't know who on the current roster. Maybe Oki or some of these defensive ends. Quincy Rhodes has a chance to be an impact guy, but he's got to be, an improved guy.
Him and Charlie Collins, I think North Little Rock and Little Rock Mills are the two, if our schools they went to, if I remember that right. Phil told me this yesterday, and I had no idea. So they had 15 forced turnovers this past season. 10 of those were Auburn and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
So 2/3 of your entire turnovers were in 2 football games last year.
It was just a huge discrepancy. Some of the games they were losing in tight games, they were forcing 0 turnovers. Yep. But the two of the games they win, they have the massive amount. So they've got to have better distribution and more in every game. Back end, I think Shakur Smalls, the new safety, Miguel Mitchell and Larry Worth, all these guys are going to have to play well. And their cornerbacks really have to hold up. And it has to be deeper than Selman Bridges and Jaheim Singletary. It's got to be some of the new guys, some of them whom were hurt in spring.
Who's the kid they brought in from Stanford, pretty highly recruited? If I remember right, he might have been the highest DB in the portal. And I'm blanking on his name. Julian Neal. Thank you, Colton.
Yeah, he's got to be a player for them. Just to create some depth, just to create guys who get their hands on balls, who can win 50-50 type balls. So many things have to go right, but I don't know. There's been times where Sam Pittman and the staff have put it together. The Tennessee game, They had some big upsets in 21, obviously, the Texas game. So, there's a chance, but a lot of things will have to fall into place, I think, for them to really be impactful.
Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Whole Hog Sports with us here. Let's talk about Taylon Green staying healthy. Arkansas has not survived a lot of seasons with a starting quarterback starting all 12 games in recent years. KJ Jackson, is he the number 2, and how does it change the offense if Taylon Green can't go in all 12 games?
I think he's the number 2. Taylon did start all 12. He just happened to go out in 2 and didn't return against Tennessee and Ole Miss, one of which resulted in, Malachi Singleton leading the team down the field for the touchdown that won the game. The difference with KJ, we haven't seen him as a runner, other than in practice reps. So can you carry on the same offense? I would think that Bobby Petrino has a very nice package that highlight all of his best traits that they can go to, because you don't go into a season without having that. But you do want to keep Taylon healthy. The problem being he's long and angular, and so his knees. I really got onto the Tennessee kid, and I forgot his name, who dove and landed low. And he also did something later in the year in the Kentucky game. The quarterback was running out of bounds, and he kind of high-pointed him and dropped him. So I didn't like that kid. But keeping Taylon Green healthy is a big thing. But he's going to run so much, and it's such a weapon for Arkansas that you just have to run that risk-reward deal.
What's A.J. Green going to factor in the team? I mean, I remember him freshman touchdown against Texas. He had that long run against BYU the next year, and then he obviously transfers to State, suffers that season-ending injury. What role is he going to play, Tom?
I hope he does. He's a great kid. I loved it when he was here before. I think they mentioned in spring he looked a little bit big, and Bobby Petrino specifically referenced he's got to play. He's a fast guy. He's got to play to his speed. So I think Braylon Russell and Washington are pretty solid 1A kind of guys. So he's got to be able to beat out some other guys to be number 3. He's a big bonus to me in pass catching. So hopefully they can find a package where he catches the ball. And he's a good runner, too. So I hope they find a role for him.
Camp's going to open in less than 30 days. Well, I guess less than 3 weeks now at this point, where we're at in the calendar. How do you think this comes together? We're still trying to answer the question at wide receiver. I don't know how. We got to watch a lot of spring ball. I don't know how much the media is going to have eyes on what's happening in the fall. My guess is limited to none. Maybe a Saturday scrimmage once. But the biggest question that we're going to have for Alabama A&M, I still think and maybe we'll get a little more insight on Cisse's injury today, but it's got to be at wide receiver.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right on your projected media access in fall, because in years past, I don't think we've seen a lot at all of fall ball. So we'll find that out. But I
can't imagine Bobby Petrino signing up for open practice as the coordinator.
Not open practice. And, even up to the stretch, at least you can get your eye on the team a little bit. But what they don't want is reporting on who's not participating. And you can get that if you watch the team stretch. But I think you're right about the receiving core. Cisse, hopefully we get an update today on how long they think he might be out, the severity of the broken wrist. But, yeah, I mean, they did nominate Omega Blake and Cam Shanks and Raylan Sharp for all-conference. I don't know if you guys have looked at the all-conference deal, but those 3 were nominated. So, at least from Arkansas's perspective, they anticipate Omega Blake and the 2 who you think of as more slot guys, Sharp and Shanks, as being SEC worthy.
The deal with Blake is, you have South Carolina people. They thought he was going to be a big factor in Columbia, and it just didn't pan out. Goes to Charlotte, does what he does there. Raylan's played in the Bobby Petrino system. Cam was an All-American punt return specialist last year. So, listen, there's a lot of questions about guys, but at least there are some accolades that they have heading in.
So we're going to have players on the All-SEC team that have never played the preseason that have never played it down in the SEC.
Yeah,
that may be the case. I was voting for some offensive linemen and some DBs today that they have a name and they have a team, but I'm like, I'm not really sure. But you get timed out if you don't finish it quickly. So some of mine were a little bit crapshoots, but I think they've got to find an outside guy, a guy who can beat with some speed, and maybe Omega Blake winds up being a real key guy. I hope so. But it seems to me like Sharp will start the season with a good shot because Bobby Petrino loves those crossing routes. And I think Sharp is going to be able to beat some corner, some nickels and guys like that who cover the slot, who are going to give him the opportunity to catch it on the run. And Petrino loves that kind of play calling.
Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Whole Hog Sports. Thanks for joining us. We'll wrap it up and kind of get some thoughts after Sam Pittman next week when you join us.
Sounds like a great idea, guys.
All right, Tom Murphy. Had fun with Tom the other night at the All-Star game.
BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season right around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering information. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline. The game starts here.